Buying a house versus renting is an ongoing discussion for a long time. This is by far the most important decision that you will ever make in your life. One wrong move can put all your hard earned money down the drain. But unlike most YouTubers who will give you just logical advice based on mathematical calculations, in this video we're going to do something different. Because we human beings not just make all our decisions logically but also with emotions, and this is one factor that we can't really discount. Now, what makes me qualified for this discussion? Fair point. I have experience of both renting versus buying, so I can give you an unbiased opinion based on my own research. Basically, we'll discuss the pros and cons of buying versus renting. Then we'll discuss factors that you should consider in case you decide to buy an investment property or a home. And third, I'm going to tell you my own experience of renting versus buying and why I decided to buy my first property. Hopefully, by the end of this video, you will feel more confident in making the right decision. Hi, I'm Priya, and I simplify complex topics such as finance, business, and digital tech. So if you're interested, then consider subscribing. But anyways, we're not going to waste time in intro because this is not why you're here, right? So let's move on to the pros of renting. Flexibility. You get the flexibility to decide where you want to live. So if you are in the early stages of your career or you travel a lot, then this is probably the best option for you. Usually, a lease is from 3 months to 6 months to even a year. After this point, you can leave, you can go wherever you want. If you didn't like the place, who cares? The next point is lower upfront cost. You don't have to invest much, you don't have to give a down payment, you don't have to give a maintenance, etc. etc. And these factors really help you to save money. The next factor is predictable cost. So when you sign your lease, no matter if the interest rates go up for mortgage or go down, you're going to pay that amount that you signed up in your lease, which is another factor why most people go for renting, even if they have the capital to buy their own home. Now let's talk about cons. The first and most important con is no equity building. You're not building equity, you're paying for mortgage for someone else. You don't get piece of equity in this. Next is limited control. Either you'll be sharing space with someone, or either you have to live by the rules of your landlord. So you're still at the mercy of your landlord. If things doesn't work out, you can't really do much about it. Next is rent increases with time and you cannot do anything about it. If your lease get over and you decide to stay in the same place, guess what? You have to pay the increased rent because somehow somebody have to pay that mortgage. So over time, renting can also become less cost effective. This also brings me to the next con of renting, that you don't get any stability. For example, if a lease get over in 6 months and somebody else is willing to pay more rent, your landlord can ask you to leave. This is why you will have to move from place to place and therefore you get no stability at all. Now let's talk about pros of buying. First thing is equity building. You build equity over time when you buy a home. Yes, it is a liability because you're paying your mortgage. It's not bringing any money into your pockets. Still in future, if you decide to sell your house and the property value appreciate, then it's not a bad deal. So it gives you that financial security, which a lot of people would debate, but we'll talk about it later. The next is stability. As a homeowner, nobody can ask you to leave unless you don't pay your mortgage. You are good to go. If tomorrow you decide to paint your walls yellow or black, you can do that. You don't need permission from anybody. You get your own space. Next is tax benefits. You get a lot of tax benefits which most YouTubers doesn't actually take account on. For example, in some places, if you do business at home, you get some tax deductions. Now let's talk about cons of buying. Number one is high upfront cost. And this is one of the major drawback of buying a home. You not only need money for down payment, you need closing cost, which could be stamp duties or other government fees or mortgage broker fee, and you need money for maintenance down the track. Now next is maintenance responsibility. Tomorrow, if you break the tap, guess what? You cannot go and complain to your landlord. You have to work on it. You, as the homeowner, have to do everything for the house. Next factor is less flexibility. Most likely, most properties take time to appreciate in value. This could be 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Most homeowners need to commit to make any profit from the appreciation of property value. But this is something which is very subjective. For example, in some locations, property appreciates really well. In some locations, it doesn't. Then there are other factors, for example, apartments versus houses versus townhouses. And unless that appreciation happens, you need to commit to the house. It does give you that stability, but it comes at a cost. Despite all these cons, if you decide to buy your own home or an investment property, what are the factors that you need to consider that no one talks about? One factor that I'm going to discuss soon is the most important factor that I don't know why not many people discuss. The first factor is financial readiness. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're buying a house, it's not just the down payment, as I mentioned before, or closing cost or maintenance cost. There are other factors, for example, home insurance, etc., council rates that can come up later, and you have to be prepared for it. You need to have emergency funds as well in case if anything happens. Now, let's do some calculations to figure out whether buying a home from a financial perspective is better than renting. I'm going to give you a very simplified example. Consider the home you're interested has a purchase price of $300,000. You've saved $60,000 for a down payment, which is 20% of the home's purchase price. The monthly rent for a comparable home is $1,500. Now, I know a lot of people will argue that what if I invest into equity and that gives 8 to 10% returns while my property is just appreciating by 3%, and that too we don't know if it's going to appreciate in 7 years or 10 years. So here I'm going to bring the other factor which most people doesn't bring. The other factors are, what are your long-term plans? What is value to you? What is happiness to you? If you don't like moving from place to place when your lease get over, if you don't like sharing your house, paying so much rent, which in mortgage also you'll pay the same amount in some places if you live a little further from the city. If your core value is freedom, that space that you get, then buying a house is actually a better option. Now, before we move ahead, there's another point that a lot of people doesn't mention, which is analyzing the market conditions. So there can be only two kind of markets. Buyer's market is when there is less demand and more supply. In that case, buyers have more advantage and they can negotiate with the sellers at a good price. Whereas if there is more demand and less supply, then this is seller's market. In that case, you might have to pay higher prices and you also might lose bidding wars against the sellers and you might have to pay more. Now, how can you figure out whether it's buyer's market or seller's market? Basically, if the prices of property is rising, then this is seller's market. In that case, probably you shouldn't consider buying a property. But if you go to an auction, for example, and you see very less participants, then this is actually a sign of buyer's market. In that case, you can negotiate with confidence and can buy your property at good prices. Now, there are some other factors which are also very important. For example, that home ownership cost comes along with many factors which I discussed in the past. Your lifestyle, your long-term plans, the location where you plan to buy. Are you planning to start your family, or you're planning to start your business, or you're planning to just move from place to place and continue working and you don't really need a stable home? All these factors are very important while making the decision. Instead of asking real estate agents or mortgage brokers, ask someone who has the similar conditions as you, who has bought a property in the same location where you're planning to buy, or who has the similar lifestyle as you. If they bought a house, what is their experience? Ask people who are living in that community. This will give you a better idea of whether you should go ahead and buy a home in that place or whether you should wait. Which brings me to the next topic, my own experience. I lived in multiple cities and countries, and in my early 20s, because I was broke, I was renting mostly. But 2 years ago, I decided to finally buy my first property. To be honest, if I have to define my experience of buying a home, it has to be through this curve. In the beginning, I was absolutely optimistic. Then I faced value of disappointment because of two reasons. The first reason was that it took me time to adjust and understand that it's a lot to own your home. It's not just about the cost and money, but you also need to make sure that you clean your home every day, you maintain it, you do things. And if it's really bigger property and more space, it means more responsibilities. It took me time to get used to that. The second factor was I was seeing a lot of YouTubers coming up with these calculations and showing why renting is better option than buying. And what I thought to myself was that, I've made a mistake. But now I'm feeling that, what? I hear a lot of stories from my friends who are living in city and still renting and they hate it. They hate the fact that they have to move from place to place or they have to share this space, the conflicts that happen, that space they don't get, and then they're answerable to their landlords at all time. These factors really make me feel that I'm actually very happy with my decision. Not only that I get that space, and my core value is freedom. I love that. This house gives me everything I've wanted. Overall, I'm extremely satisfied with my decision. So I won't tell you whether you should rent or buy. Figure out what is your core value. If you are focused on your career, which requires you to travel a lot, then probably your life circumstances demand you to rent instead of buying a house. If you live in a place where properties doesn't appreciate or there's corruption, these all factors can also come into play. Then in that case, renting is actually a better option. The place where I live in, properties appreciate. It's a growing area. I got a very good deal. It worked well for me. I'm actually paying way less than I would pay if I live in city and I rent. So it helps me to save money because I'm staying a little bit further from city. And it's also helping me satisfy my own core values. Happiness is the most important thing. Your decision should be based on your happiness. Because regardless of what decision you make, it's not just about finance, it's also about happiness. Remember, money is just a tool. It should only remain a tool. If it's the only basis for every decision in your life, you're probably not going to be ever happy. So that's all for today. If you really like this video, then click on that like button. And if you didn't like this video, then let me know in the comment section why didn't you like and what can I do to improve myself. Moreover, I would love to hear what other video topics you would like to see on this channel because my goal is to simplify all these complex topics such as finance, business ideas, and digital tech, which can make your life really easy and simple. And life doesn't have to be this complicated, right? Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.